Power is not given. It is taken. It moves in silence. It controls perception. Psychology of power. Master the mind. Control the game.
Power is rarely born in comfort. It is forged in instability, in humiliation, in silence. In 1991, the world watched the Soviet Union collapse. A superpower dissolved without a single invading army. The red flag was lowered from the Kremlin. 15 republics broke away. An empire disappeared almost overnight. For the West, it was the end of the Cold War. But for millions of Russians, it was something else. It was loss. It was chaos. It was humiliation on a global stage. And somewhere inside that collapse stood a former intelligence officer who would later call it the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. His name is Vladimir Putin. This is not just the story of a president. It is the story of a man shaped by the fall of an empire, and what happens when that man gains absolute power. Vladimir Putin was born in 1952 in Leningrad, a city still scarred by World War II. The siege of Leningrad had killed more than 1 million people. Hunger and trauma lingered long after the war ended. His family lived in a communal apartment. One room, shared kitchen, shared bathroom. Privacy was rare. Comfort was non-existent. His father was a wounded war veteran. Discipline was strict. Weakness was unacceptable. Former classmates described him as small, quiet, observant, but intensely competitive. In unstable environments, children learn quickly. They either submit to chaos, or they attempt to control it. Putin chose control. As a teenager, he immersed himself in judo. Judo is not about brute force. It is about balance, leverage, using an opponent's momentum against them. Years later, he would repeat a phrase: "If a fight is inevitable, strike first." In 1975, he joined the KGB. The KGB did not simply train agents. It shaped psychological discipline, patience, emotional restraint, strategic silence. Putin was not flamboyant. He was methodical, reserved, precise. He was eventually stationed in Dresden, East Germany. And there, history intervened. In 1989, protests spread across Eastern Europe. The Berlin Wall began to fall. Crowds gathered outside the KGB building in Dresden. Putin later recalled calling Moscow for instructions. The response was chilling. Moscow is silent. The empire he had pledged loyalty to was collapsing. No orders, no backup, no structure. For a man who believed in hierarchy and stability, this was more than political change. It was abandonment. Years later, he would describe the collapse of the Soviet Union as the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. But perhaps it was something even more personal. Humiliation. Psychologists note that institutional betrayal often creates deep intolerance for chaos. Those who experience systemic collapse do not seek reform. They seek restoration. The 1990s were devastating for Russia. Hyperinflation wiped out savings. Organized crime surged. Life expectancy dropped. The nation that once rivaled the United States was now economically fragile. Russia was no longer feared, yet it was pitied. In moments of national humiliation, society's search for strength. In 1999, President Boris Yeltsin resigned unexpectedly and appointed Vladimir Putin as acting President Dot at the time. He was relatively unknown Dot, but he understood something critical. People exhausted by instability do not demand freedom first. They demand security. And security was exactly what he promised. Once in power, Putin moved deliberately. Regional governors lost autonomy. Major media outlets came under increasing state influence. Power structures were consolidated to supporters. This was stabilization to critics. It was democratic erosion. From a psychological perspective, the pattern is consistent. Individuals shaped by instability often construct rigid systems to prevent unpredictability. Nations can mirror the psychology of their leaders. Putin projected strength. Carefully, photographs of him practicing judo, flying with military pilots, riding horseback, standing confidently beside soldiers. Images were not accidental. They were narrative, strength, control, restoration. Political. Power is rarely just political. It is psychological. Leaders who experience instability early in life often develop a deep intolerance for unpredictability. They centralize authority. They reduce dissent. They tighten information flow. From their perspective, it is not oppression. It is prevention. Prevention of chaos. Prevention of humiliation. Prevention of collapse. But control has consequences. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. In 2022, it launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. To some observers, these actions represent strategic geopolitical calculations. To others, they reflect something deeper, an attempt to restore lost influence. Putin has frequently spoken about protecting Russian identity and resisting Western expansion. For him, borders may not simply represent territory. They may represent memory, memory of respect, memory of power, memory of empire. History often judges leaders by outcomes, victories, losses, territories gained or lost. But psychology reminds us of something more subtle. Every leader carries unfinished history within them. For Vladimir Putin, the collapse of 1991 was not simply geopolitical. It was personal. And when personal memory becomes national policy, the consequences rarely remain contained. The world may debate his strategy. It may question his methods. It may condemn or defend his decisions. But one reality remains undeniable. Empire that fell in 1991 did not fully disappear. It survived in memory, in identity, and perhaps most powerfully, in the mind of the man who leads Russia today.